Number 4, and we are rolling again.
So the how of the internet.
The how does the internet work? Yes, well, so it uses its complicated technology, of course, but I think there's several aspects of it that are pretty easy to understand, and they pretty much capture the whole story. The first one is the low level, basically moving the bits from machine to machine to machine, so that we can get email and web services and things like that. So how does that work? Well, it uses a protocol called TCP/IP, which is IP is Internet Protocol, and then there's the transfer for using the Internet Protocol that was invented by Bob Kahn and Vint Cerf. And Vint Cerf always tells the story about how the Internet works. He says, imagine that you wanted to write that you've written a novel, but you're living in Tahiti, and you want to send it to your publisher in, say, New York City. So what you do is you get a whole stack of postcards, and you start writing your novel on the postcards, and you start with chapter 1, and you write as much of the novel on the postcard as will fit. You put a number on that, and you put the address of the publisher in New York City. Drop it in the box. And then you move on to the next card and write the part that follows that onto the postcard, put number 2 on there, put the address of the publisher on it, and drop it in the box, and so forth. And you just do that and march all the way through. And after a lot of cards, you will have gotten your entire novel converted from your novel, whatever manuscript form it was in, to postcards, and now they're on their way to the publisher. So an important aspect of this is that each packet, and that's what the internet uses, a little packet of information corresponding to a postcard, has several things on it. It has the address of its destination. That's the IP address. It's the number that your computer has been given. It has a sequence number, which basically is in this big message that we're trying to transmit, the novel. Where does this particular packet belong? And it has the payload, the actual content that it's being shipped. And that leaves Tahiti, and assuming it's going by air, for example, it might go by via Hong Kong, and then perhaps Bangkok, and then Europe someplace, and then New York City. Or it could go the other direction. It might go from Tahiti to, say, Los Angeles, and then maybe Chicago, and then New York, and so forth. In fact, there's lots of different routes, and any one of them could be taken. And that's another point about the internet, and that is that IP packets can take any route they want to the destination. Each of them is effectively a standalone little message, and so it can just go hopping from destination to destination. And that's exactly the way it works. I mean, there are wires that go to these intermediate hubs, and they forward them on to other places and so forth. And so the routing is technically tough and so forth, but that's the basic idea, is that your email message would be broken up into a couple of pieces, perhaps, depends on how wordy you are when you type your email message, and then each of those packets will be sent to the IP address of the destination. Now, an interesting question is, you probably don't know the IP address of your computer, and most people don't. There's really no need, except the day that they're setting up their connection to the internet. And so the computer has to find out what your address is. Usually the computer already knows that because you've loaded it in, but it needs to know the IP address of your destination. Well, when your destination is, let me say, at gmail.com or yahoo.com or whatever, where is yahoo.com? That's not an IP number, and IP numbers are 4 numbers in sequence. So it has to find out who is the domain yahoo.com. So what it does is it asks the domain name system, who is yahoo.com, and it is the phone book of the internet. So the domain name system basically looks up yahoo.com, and it finds out that it's some 4-number IP address, and it tells your computer what that is, and actually it tells the mail server that's sending your email for you where that is, and so the mail server then slaps that as the destination address for your email message, and sends it off. And so it works its way around, and it gets to yahoo.com. And that's where it sits in their input mail server until you log in and ask for your mail, and then it gets delivered to you. So that sort of hopping along is the main process that is used to deliver the mail. And an important part about that is that because everything is independent, it's very resilient to errors and failures and things like that. So imagine, getting back to our postcard analogy, that there's this typhoon in the Eastern Pacific or whatever, and so you now can't get mail from Tahiti to Los Angeles, let's say. So now you have to go through Tahiti through Hong Kong to keep keeping the mail moving, and so that's fine. You know, unlike a phone connection, which is with landlines at least, is basically a continuous connection through a set of wires that, once it's set up, remains set up until you hang up. Having all of these independent connections and allowing every packet to go any old way it wants. Some of the packets go one way, some go another way. If there's something in the way, they just bypass it, and so forth.